to arrive, so we're waiting a few minutes. Okay, call to order the regular meeting of the Planning Commission for May's meeting. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Burke.
Here, and just for the public record, I should say
There
I'm
we go.
Hello.
He's attending remotely. He's trying to say he's attending remotely.
I'm
Thank-
attending remotely due to illness, and I am in a private room, just so there's no one else here. Again, for the public record.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Slaymaker.
Here.
Commissioner Storr.
Here.
Commissioner Hart.
Here.
Commissioner Lasky.
Here.
And Vice Chair Johnson.
Here.
And Chair Carapiet.
Here.
And that concludes the roll. Everyone is present for the most part.
And can you name the staff that's present, please?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Can you name the staff that's present?
Yes. And up here, we have Ann, our city attorney. We have Nancy, our tech guru, overlord of Zoom. We have Sammy, the ever-present master planner staff guy. And I am the interim director, Brad Evanson.
Thank you. Moving on to the open forum, this is an opportunity for any citizen to briefly address the Planning Commission on any matter that does not appear on this agenda. Upon being recognized by the chair, please state your name and limit your oral statement to no more than 3 minutes. Matters that appear to warrant a more lengthy presentation or commission consideration will be agendized for further discussion at a later meeting. Are there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom, Nancy? Okay, reports. The reports agenda item consists of any oral reports from standing planning commission committees and any individual member of the planning committee and staff. Do we have any reports? Seeing none, moving on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of items that the Planning Commission considers to be non-controversial. Unless an item is specifically removed by any member of the Planning Commission, staff, or audience, the consent calendar will be adopted by one motion. Items removed will be considered in the sequence as they appear below. If any member of the audience wishes to have an item removed, follow the remote meeting procedures. If you are on Zoom, you can raise your hand and or email the acting director of planning and building, Brad Everson, at bevanson@cityofbelvedere.org and indicate that you would like to remove a consent calendar item and identify the item. After removing the item, the Planning Commission will call for comment at the appropriate time. Is there anyone on the commission that wishes to remove anything from consent calendar? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to remove anything from the consent calendar? Is there anyone on Zoom, Nancy? Okay, so can I have a motion for?
I make a motion that we accept the consent calendar.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
Slaymaker.
Yes.
Johnson. Burke.
Yes.
Storr.
Yes.
Hart.
Yes.
And Carapiet.
Yes.
And 7-0.
Okay, moving on to public hearings. Item number 2, may we have a staff report for 49 Peninsula Road, please?
Thank you.
Oh, there's Isabel.
Good evening, commissioners and members of the public. My name is Isabel and I'm a contract planner working on behalf of the city of Belvedere to process this application. I will share my screen. I think that looks good.
Isabel, can you adjust your mic to make it a little bit louder, please?
Can you hear me better?
No.
I can dial in on my phone. I've been having audio issues. Welcome to Zoom. Enter your speaker.
Marcia, is that too much for you, that music? Let me know, I'll close the door.
Hello. Is that better?
Kevin, do you mind testing your audio too? Because yours was kind of quiet as well.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you can kind of hear better.
Isabel, how are you sounding?
Testing 1, 2.
It's on.
Pretty quiet.
But last time we did this, it didn't matter.
Isabel, do you have a headset? I'm using a headset.
I have my phone mic on, but I can grab a headset.
It might help.
Testing.
Try again, Isabel.
Testing 1, 2.
Hmm,
How's that coming across?
It's a little bit better.
It's a little bit better.
How about now? Does that sound okay?
That sounds better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. All right. So I will get started on the staff report. For the commission's consideration this evening is an application requesting for design review approval at 49 Peninsula Road by Robert Tranter of Format Architecture on behalf of the property owners, Nathan Allen and Heidi Bioski. The project site is a 5,253 square foot parcel when measured at the bulkheads located in the R1L zoning district. The lot backs into Belvedere Lagoon and is developed with a 2-story single-family home and accompanying bulkhead and dock. The project proposes renovation and internal reconfiguration of the existing single-family home and exterior improvements to the property with no change to the zoning parameters. As noted in the staff report, pursuant to the Belvedere Municipal Code Section 1908-203 and Section 1908-310, the proposed enclosure space already contributes to the gross floor area and lot coverage of the home, as it is covered by the second level of the existing building, which has a floor, and is in line with the exterior faces of the proposed enclosing wall. The proposed expansion to the second floor is also within an existing double height space and will not increase the lot coverage or floor area of the structure. On the first floor, the project proposes enclosure of the existing entryway, which will accommodate a new gym and pantry space. The red dashed line indicates the location of the proposed enclosure. In terms of exterior improvements, the project proposes a new entry gate and fence and proposes to remove the vines and shrubs located here in section D and to slightly expand the openings facing the lagoon. In terms of internal reconfiguration, the project proposes to adjust the location of the stairwell, create a new bedroom space here at E, and to move the kitchen towards the lagoon-facing side of the property here. This is the existing entryway for the proposed enclosure. The project proposes to replant all existing trees and shrubs in this area to avoid new pavers towards the entrance of the home. In the rear yard, the location of the proposed hot tub and outdoor grill are highlighted in yellow. The proposed hot tub is located behind an existing bench to reduce any visual impact towards the lagoon. There is existing light along the bench as well as along the side of the home, which will provide some lighting for safety. The project also proposes to relocate the existing tree a little closer to the home and to include new shrub plantings along the proposed hot tub and grill. On the second floor, the project proposes to remove the trellises as indicated here in A and to expand the second floor in the existing double height space. And the trellises to be removed in the backyard are outlined in red here. The next few slides show the existing and proposed exterior elevations of the structure for clarity on the project. For the north entry elevation, the main change would be the addition of the entry gate and fence along with 2 new windows. For the south lagoon facing elevation, the main change would be expansion of the existing openings as highlighted in yellow and removal of the trellis. For the east elevation, the project proposes to infill the existing chimney and install new windows. Lastly, the west elevation shows the proposed enclosure of the existing entryway and associated windows. All proposed materials are to match the existing features to blend into the existing structure. No new exterior lighting is proposed. The proposed entry fence and gate would match the existing trim of the house, and the proposed fenestration would also match what is existing. Staff is able to provide statements of fact to support the required findings for design review approval, as the project minimally disturbs existing site conditions, would integrate well into the site, would maintain a balanced and harmonious relationship with neighboring homes, and would not increase the impression of bulk. In terms of design, the proposed entry gate and fence provides architectural interest and complements the existing structure while providing privacy and screening from the peninsula right-of-way. The proposed new windows would not intrude on privacy of adjacent neighbors and would use low E coatings to reduce reflectivity and to meet Title 24 energy requirements. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA as it is a negligible expansion of the existing residential use. Staff has received 5 letters in support of this project from the neighbors at 47, 48, 51 and 53, 56, and 60 Peninsula Road. No concerns have been raised. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution granting design review approval for the project at 49 Peninsula Road. Staff is available for questions, and the architect, Robert Turner, is present in City Hall as well to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel, for a very nice report. Does the commission have any questions for staff at this time? Seeing none, I'll ask the applicant to do his presentation, please.
All right, can everyone hear me? Great. Isabel, thank you. Appreciate it. My name's Robert Tranter with Formed Architecture. I am the architect for my client, who is the homeowner of 49 Peninsula. They moved here with their family just a few years ago. They have 3 kids and they're loving life on the lagoon. A primary objective for this home from the start that my clients have had is really implement functional changes to really utilize the house as a whole. Another key thing that they wanted to do is reconnect with their beautiful outdoor patio, their backyard, as well as the lagoon. With those two kind of goals in mind, it's led off into a really inward design that also impacts the things that we see on the outside. And I'd like to walk you through a few of those. I had a great opportunity to meet most of the commissioners on site. I had a great time both walking and hearing your guys' inputs and thoughts. Many of which, again, the goal as I think about this house having this double-sided view with public being able to see off Peninsula Road and the lagoon, the goal with the design is to basically aim to create an elegant solution that harmonizes this new proposed design with the existing home, as well as the neighborhood in the city of Belvedere. A key thing that came out of the site walk that's clouded in red at the entry was an opportunity, instead of demolishing a whole bunch of plantings that we originally thought we would need to, again, replant. So we are proposing no changes to planting and removing there. As we, again, think of the public view and we flip to the other side, it was again recommended to add a tree at the west side, to move the myrtle on the corner of the house, and to create a planting screen in front of the grill as well as the hot tub. Both of which I believe everyone received today, both an updated site plan and renderings. The hot tub and grill, when we think of the location here, we thought it was a really unique opportunity to put the hot tub behind this existing bench. It would cover half of the hot tub, as well as the grill on the other side. And there is a myrtle tree there that's it's about 5-6 feet tall. And we would move that to the corner of the home. And we would screen in front of these elements between the bench and the hot tub in front of the lagoon. Again, a key ingredient that we started thinking of when I first was invited to the home was just how odd the kitchen is off Peninsula Road. I mean, it's a great kitchen, but when you're in there, you really are disconnected of what makes living on the lagoon unique, is seeing the water and being able to make that connection. So one of the key features was finding a place for the kitchen, and a lot goes into that. And it just so happens that there's a great opportunity to move it and to anchor and to refocus on where the hierarchy of the home, with the kitchen being a main function off the lagoon. This element that contains the fireplace and the stair sits right in the middle of this double height space, and it divides the home. So it depends on which side you are on this, if you can see the lagoon, or if not, it creates some unique pinch points, and it becomes such a large divider that in finding that the homeowners barely use the spaces south of this fireplace. This stair, the way it has to turn and get up to the second floor, creates a pinch point that's about 2 feet on the east side of this plan. And it again creates and blocks. At level 2, you can see in the image here that it creates this kind of large hallway that anchors and circulates around the double height space. And we thought this would be a really great opportunity to turn that hallway into a usable foyer that the homeowners and their kids can spill out and have a space to collect on level 2. Currently, from the exterior of the home, if you are walking off Peninsula Road, it takes about 30 feet to get to the entrance of the home, which again creates, they've had a few unique situations of people entering so far into the home. So infilling this creates an opportunity to have usable space, as well as create a really nice entrance that feels, it's still recessed off the front wall of, near Peninsula. So you still have this nice receiving with a gate, as you can see in the rendering, opening and create a nice new entry into the home. I had a great opportunity to walk some of you inside the home. And sometimes it's hard to really see the disconnect from this home, from the lagoon and the water, unless you're in it. These photos were actually taken today. And if you squint, you can kind of see some connection of water. It really is just looking through these opening doors on the south side and on the east side facing the lagoon. So when thinking of making all these changes and moving the kitchen and taking out the fireplace, infilling, moving the stair, it seemed this was a really distinct opportunity to celebrate this double height space. And instead of putting glass everywhere, really focus on this corner, given all the connections and the hierarchy that this home will now have. A unique thing about this home is it has 175 feet of trellis. It almost wraps around the entire house. And it creates a datum around the home that's around 7'8". And this trellis is consistent and it wraps. And instead of changing or adapting, we thought it was a great opportunity to remove and to really open up this corner off the double height space, given its 2 stories, and allow the connection and still stay within the realm of what the home expresses, keeping the trellis where it makes sense and allowing vines to grow on both sides of this corner. A glow plan, we hired a lighting designer. This is one of the first things that we did with the home. I'm really sensitive. We're obviously increasing the amount of glass, and it was important for us to bring an interior lighting designer to help us think about this space. The way it's currently lit, it has pendant lights that act almost as kind of museum lighting. But the issue with that is you see a lot of those fixtures from the lagoon. So this felt like a great opportunity to bring them on, and they've had endless amount of ideas. I'll just point out a few. You can see the stair there. Instead of lighting the stair from pendants or a bunch of light from the ceiling, it was a great opportunity to do lights off the wall. There's a lot of low lighting. The idea that if you are going to get a drink of water at night, you don't turn on this whole house and flood the lagoon with lights. There's almost a trail that follows the feed at a low level with the lighting. It happens in the kitchen. It happens around this new bench around the fireplace, all the way up to level 2. And on the right, you can see we are supplying can lights. They will be some of the new fixtures that have a nice recess, and we will ensure with the lighting designer that we really minimize and we don't see the light fixtures from the lagoon. So with all these changes, on the left, you can see kind of before the circulation plan, you enter under the stair, you go left, you go right. That little center stair and fireplace really creates a disconnect. And by entering up closer to Peninsula Road, It creates a nice use in hierarchy throughout the space. Coming up at level 2, instead of again circulating around this the hallway looking down on level 1, at infilling this, flipping the stair allows us to utilize that space. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions for the applicant? Larry?
Just, you and I talked a bit about the hot tub location when we were there. It was pretty windy. And I suggested maybe think about moving it further back to the corner of the back patio and leave the myrtle tree there, maybe put a tall tree where you're now proposing the myrtle tree. I don't know if you got to anything any further on that or thinking, or you want to keep it out where it is.
So we discussed are you thinking of the east, kind of where the grill currently is?
No, moving the hot tub back. Maybe if you put up
Yeah.
a slide. So I don't know what you call it, but what's the name of the room to the south off to the right?
Yeah, the family room
No,
here.
No, the one in the back.
Oh, yes,
here.
the dining room
Dining room. Oh, that's the dining room.
and office.
So I
Right.
was thinking right in there where your
Yeah,
hand
we
is.
we looked at that. We measured. This becomes a corridor you could imagine to garbages and, the use access to the garage. It was getting really close and pinched. Our fear is that we might have to get rid of this tree, which we really don't want to do, but we did look at that. We had our tape measure out the other day and seeing if that could fit, but to keep the access, it felt like we were encroaching on that tree a little bit.
It's a trade-off, the wind and the location. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, that's all I had. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the suggestion on the tree in the corner there. I think that's an improvement. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a couple of questions, Commissioner or Chairman Person Carpia.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Robert, you and I discussed this during our conversation, but I just wanted to bring it forward to the rest of the commissioners. My concern was about light pollution and, particularly as you were adding windows F, G, H, K, and J, which I believe those are all incremental to the current conditions. And I think you can best see them on elevations A302, 03, and 04. And I think your glow chart that you just shared is helpful, but it isn't necessarily about seeing the light, the can of the light from the lagoon. It's the light that's emitted from the light itself that is the concern. And I just wonder if you've given that any more thought, or, you had mentioned that there were going to be light fixtures that were more pin-like in terms of how they light, which could help mitigate some of the issues. So that's one part of the question. And then why don't I respond to that, and then I'll ask you the other part.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the question. So we've met with the lighting designer a few times, and he kind of had this crash course of lighting 101, which was kind of fun. But he reminded the clients and me that light is invisible until it hits a surface. And he said it's important to remember that when we put a can light up into a ceiling, you don't see the volume of the light coming down. You see it once it actually reflects off a surface into your eyes. And his goal would be to ensure that every light has a purpose. A lot of times I've been on projects where we don't have a lighting designer and things get overlit because you don't have the modeling that lighting designers can do. And so people get nervous and you come in and you just fill the whole room with lights. My mom is guilty of this. She'll put lights everywhere. And I think it's good to remember that when we brought them on, there really is kind of a science to it. And it was a good reminder that the reason why like pendants or things cause issues, because then you see the light source, and then you're right, the solution just isn't to put in a whole bunch of recessed lighting. It's what are the reasons for those, and ensure that the light hits the floor and doesn't start filtering onto the outdoor spaces. And that's the challenge, because if we have windows all the way at the top, the light pollution occurs when the beam is huge and it just spills into the outdoor space. So there will be a lot of conversations as to how do we direct the light source back in and keep it from just spilling throughout the home and onto the lagoon.
Thank you. And the other second part of the question, also related to windows, is just in terms of adding more windows does create more opportunity for light pollution on the lagoon, regardless of how the fixture is placed and even how the light itself is directed. And I wonder, there's 2 additional windows that are they really necessary, and or could this help mitigate some of the additional windows that were added?
He froze. He froze.
Second issue with that.
Kevin,
Just
you're kind of frozen there.
I realize they have that. Yeah,
I'm sorry, Kevin. You froze there for a minute. So
Sure.
we didn't hear everything you just said about the 2 windows. Which 2
Got it.
windows are you talking about?
Windows F and J. So F is in bedroom number 4 and J is in the primary bedroom.
Okay.
And the additional concern with window F in bedroom 4 is also the privacy issue it creates for 51.
Found out.
So we're talking, I slipped the whole set in behind the presentation. So we're talking about this window,
Correct.
okay? And this window, is that
Correct.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
There it is.
I don't know if I was the only one who didn't understand the question. There's a little bit of choppy. So what was now that we know the 2 windows, Kevin, what is the question?
So again, I think my concern overall is just light pollution. And I guess as you think about the quantity of windows that are added, one way to address the light pollution issue or mitigate it is to reduce some of the windows.
Yeah.
And those 2 to me seem like they could be potential candidates for reduction if in fact other commissioners found the same issue. If not, then I think we can move on.
Thank you. Do you mind if I respond?
Sure, please. Thank you.
Let me find a good view. It's good to note, this is a photo. Obviously, I wasn't taking it for that view. This window is really tucked. This proposed area of a window really is tucked underneath this eave. The roof extends in upwards of 3 to 4 feet off the face of wall. So that it's really kind of tucked up there. I definitely do appreciate the concern. And I actually, every time I visit, I forget that there's even this kind of outdoor space that you can come on, because this is just, right kind of facing the lagoon. So our hope is that it's a minimal, it would be kind of have minimal impact on the lagoon by adding that window. And then the one off the bedroom off the side, there's actually some really tall trees there, which we're adding. You can see kind of in the site plan here and in the photo. this tree here. And it, again, it's up tall, it's screening. We've got approval or thumbs up and a letter from that side of the neighbor. And so we're again hopeful that we can keep it. It would be a nice view to that side of the lagoon, which the home currently doesn't have. So those would be my response, and thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Just to follow up on Kevin's question about window number F. What's the sill height on that? It's not quite a celestial window, but it's up relatively high off the floor.
Of the off the primary bedroom?
F, yeah, off the primary.
Yeah, so it will be a little higher than the sill. We have the deck to work with. We don't want to get into the waterproofing within that outdoor deck.
It's not the primary,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry.
It's number 4. It's on 304.
Okay, off the bedroom.
Off the bedroom, sorry.
the-
Too many bedrooms.
Yeah. So there is a lot of windows on this side. Let me see if right here, see all these windows that kind of track down off the west side? So we would match that, which is just a few feet off the floor.
Good.
Just so it matches.
Okay, thank you.
I
Oh,
have
sorry.
something to add with the can lights up in the ceiling. I recommend you take your lighting specialist on a boat or a canoe on the lagoon at night. Because I think it somehow doesn't sound right when you say that the light doesn't do anything till it hits something. Because we have many instances on the lagoon where people have very high ceilings and they put in the can lights and they reflect because of the angles to the water and straight into other people's bedrooms and living rooms and so on. And I think we've tried to tell lighting specialists that that is something that we have complaints constantly. Hence the word light pollution. So before you really set on having all these cans, it looks very minimal and so on in your beautiful rendition on the lighting plan. But I think maybe a ride on the lagoon at
Yeah,
night
I love that idea.
would be
Mhm.
very beneficial because it does really irritate neighbors.
Yep. And it's worth, that is definitely something to note. It's also just worth noting, a few members of the family have poor eyesight, so high lighting levels is very important for them. And that I think is going to be a balance. And I agree with you. We want to get the lighting bright. It has a big impact on the lagoon and even the wild and the species along the lagoon. So.
And another thing to your hot tub.
Yes.
The placement of that hot tub, as I told you, I feel it's really invasive to all the neighbors to have such a prominent visual spot to put a hot tub for everybody to see and kind of semi-partake in what goes on in the hot tub at night, in daytime, and so on. And I think it should be, like Commissioner Store said, tucked into one side. It already takes up, in your rendering, so much space of your main area of your deck or your front patio, that if that is taken up, not where maybe the present Weber is standing, but maybe even further out or a little further towards the lagoon. But I think it would be really respectful for all the neighbors to keep a enjoyment thing like that more private. And as we discussed also with the barbecue, that the barbecue, you have put both these very family-oriented things as far out into the public as you can. Instead of like, I can nearly say nearly all the other homes on Belvedere or on the lagoon, they bring them back and then have the beautiful open lagoon, whether it's manicured with plants or the decking or something, but they are not, I hate to use the word cluttered, but filled with built-in barbecues and built-in hot tubs. And yes, I can see that you put 4 little plants to hide them, but as you and I discussed, we have no way of guaranteeing that these plants are going to survive. Suddenly they might not get water and there are no plants. And there you have a huge hot tub at the most exposed part of this home towards all the neighbors and the view. So I really think that that location for both those items should be reconsidered. And you at one point said that, yeah, the L facing the lagoon would be removed. And as we said, maybe the barbecue could be moved 4 or 5 feet in towards the house instead of being way out facing the water. But I do not see any changes there.
I appreciate your comments, and again, it built on the back of Commissioner Larry, who had shared the same concerns. So yesterday we were out there with the client with the tape measure and just really thinking this home is unique with these really pinch points on either side, with a huge boat dock and then this integral bench. We did, however, come up with an option, if you don't mind me showing, as and this we felt like this really could be an option. Again, we came up with it just real quick the other day, and this thought was actually pushing the built-in grill completely off the lagoon. Given, we were just talking about like how much do you really use a grill, and those things can really sit vacant for a while. So if we tuck it away on this side around the planting, and that felt like it does create this pinch point, but regardless, you already had the pinch point turning that corner. So we would just take out a little bit of the vegetation in one of the steps, and then so when you're coming down the side of the house, you would just have to transition. Maybe we do some planting here, so it really feels integrated. And then we would just move the hot tub completely over to this location, which already has concrete. Their son is really into potted plants. So we did this rendering and thinking of the potted plants sitting up here, pushing this to the corner. It's not on display. And this would allow us to keep all of this, and per Commissioner Larry, potentially even proposing a taller tree, because this would be new. And by doing this, I think there was, I believe with you and Commissioner Pat, there's a lot of good suggestions that you would really see this. This would be on display from the inside. You do all these renovations and you'd be looking at a hot tub and thinking the light pollution. The list goes on, that we do see a benefit of saving the planting at this corner, planting a new tree at the corner of the house, moving the hot tub out of the way, and putting the grill on the side of the home.
Definitely better. I still would like to see it off the main public, so to say.
I know
Especially public area.
it is a challenge
And
with
you
it.
have
only
such a
being-
large area by the office that you could change it to, but only my ideas.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all your input.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. Oh, Larry, back again.
Just, could you, I change the subject back to the lighting. Could you go back to your
Yeah.
lighting? I hadn't thought about this, but the stairs lit that way, they're going to be quite visible to the people. That's such a narrow part of the lagoon. The people across the lagoon are going to see that lighting pattern going up the wall there. any way to do that to soften that some way or to?
Yeah, there's really cool features that almost feel like it's a quarter size light hole that just gives enough foot candles to be safe on a stair. Otherwise you have to make sure that the foot candles are high enough with downlights. But I agree. I think right now, they probably got a little carried away of how many lights are on that. I think we could really minimize that and just get it to the bare minimum for safety.
Those lights aren't very high up off of the
No.
tread, right?
The treads here, they're just right off it. And it wouldn't be a sconce, so you wouldn't see the fixture. It'd be buried within the wall.
So it would probably just light up the top part of the tread, not the wall, the face of the tread?
Exactly. It's not
I
a
was
wall
thinking the
wash.
tread face might be quite visible or something.
You're exactly right. It's just shining to the right to wash the top of the stair, not the wall.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And, thank you.
Last call for questions. Thank you very much for your patience and all your answers. Okay, I'd like to open the public meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Nancy, anyone? No one on Zoom? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission to discuss. Commissioner Burke, we'll start off with you.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I really think it's a very thoughtful design, and I think it does increase the utility of the home. And Robert, I think you've been incredibly collaborative. It sounds like that's true of your interaction with the other commissioners. It certainly was true of the conversation that we had. And so, you know, if there are no other commissioners who feel strongly about the quantity of windows, I can certainly make the findings for design review.
Thank you. Commissioner Lasky, please.
I think when this comes to be approved, I think you should have a concise lighting design and also landscape design to submit for the chairman and the planning staff to approve. It's kind of piecemeal now, and we haven't really seen it all together. In general, I think that you really have made this home a lot more livable by moving things around. In fact, when I was looking, by mistake, I was looking at the existing plan. I thought, why is the kitchen way back there? So I think you did a great job moving the kitchen forward and also taking out that fireplace, even though I hate that to happen because you can't put it back in nowadays. But it really opens up the space to be able to use it instead of trying to walk through a corner. I do think closing in the walkway, though, creates problems by trying to have the stepping stones from the water side all the way up. I think it's very challenging to think that you'll be able to replant the mature Japanese maples. I mean, it might be difficult to make that successful. And the landscaping now is really so beautiful that I couldn't help myself from kind of reconfiguring some of the interior to make it a little more efficient. And of course, the house now is 90% of maximum floor area as it exists. If you moved the office to the upstairs, the bonus room, you could move the office out. And if you move the gym over to where the office is now, in fact, you could put the hot tub outside of the gym. It would be level. You wouldn't need to enclose so much of the that exterior space. And you could move the front door down somewhat. And as I mentioned to you, I thought it was an idea that you could make this front bedroom into a junior ADU. And you have enough room by moving the guest bathroom forward into where the mudroom is and putting a kitchen there. So you really just need a kitchen and an exterior door. And the mudroom could be the space between the garage and the front room. but it's just, I couldn't help myself moving everything around to,
I
in
think
my
we should
mind.
go in business together.
So, anyway, I just wanted, you to consider all those things. It would be great to have a junior ADU there. And it's a perfect, location. So I think the design, can be refined to make it better and a better landscape plan and also lighting. So I'm not against making the design review with some of those conditions, but I'd like to hear what other people have to say. And I really, as I mentioned to you, it's very important to have some full-grown trees on the water side. It softens the exterior and also from people across the lagoon when you look over how nice that is when they have full-grown trees. So that's all I have for that. Thank you.
Do you mind if I respond at
Yeah,
all?
of course.
Okay. Thank you. And I actually, that bottom rendering was for you, that proposed entrance, because we kept thinking, well, I first should say that calculation in 90% was a mistake. That was for the FAR. So it was updated in the prints, and the actual number is 49% when you think of the use of the site, the ground floor plan, and all the overhangs to the site. And that was my mistake. I did it as an FAR. So I just thought I would mention that. And then the infill of this area, we still wanted this to feel like a familiar entrance. So many entrances along Pennsylvania, you don't just go right to the door and into the house. There's this threshold. So we wanted to maintain that. And the stepping kind of pavers is a great language that already exists. And I agree the Japanese maple would be my concern as well. There's a lot of bushes that have plenty of room to move. Maybe the paving gets smaller. I think there's ways to really save it. Given that the landscape and the tree was planted in 2018, there is a chance we could move it and save it. It hasn't been there for 20 years. So I actually am really hopeful that we can make that work, and it won't feel odd. It won't feel like what happened here, because we already have that language past the entry, and then this infill still creates that. And I actually love all your suggestions with the home. They're fantastic. The unfortunate thing is that the homeowners have 3 kids, busy bodies. We've been working on everything that they need to make their home and really make this investment for them. And it's a balance of finding the needs of what they want that make it worth even this project for them, to be here instead of time with their family, and all through construction and moving out. It's a big deal for them. So we've been working really close with them, kicked off last September, and we've gotten here through really designing this inside and out, and hopefully coming up with a cohesive design that will work both for them as well as for the city and the neighborhood. But I really appreciate all your suggestions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Story, please.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you, Robert, for showing me around and the discussion we had. I read all the materials and visited the site, spent some time with Robert, obviously, and I was focused mostly on potential privacy issues that might come up, and also the light pollution issues. As far as privacy goes, I didn't see any issues with the placement of the windows, proposed windows. The ones on the north side are well screened, like you mentioned, and the ones to the south, the high windows to the south that look over the neighbor's yard, there's no second floor, so there's no privacy issue that I could see. So I was pretty pleased. I think what you showed us on the location of the hot tub, I think, is an improvement over what you're asking approval of.
Yeah.
So I would it leaves the 2 trees. It does better screening of that part of the house with all the glass. So I would encourage you to do that. I don't know how we take care of that in this meeting. And so I also concur. I think all the changes you've made have really made the flow of the house much better and more practical. And so I can make the findings if we can figure out how to condition it so that what you propose with the
option.
location, the option on the tub. There is one thing I was going to ask. I'd prefer to see that little pitched trellis at the entryway remain rather than be removed, because it sort of talks to the roof, which is also pitched. But taking it out, I think it kind of takes away an element there that I know you're putting a window in there, so it does break it up, but I think that also adds some element of attractiveness. So I don't know if any of the other commissioners would agree to include that as a condition or not.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
I'm not going to die on the hill of trying to save this pitch, but the thoughts about this is there is this really unique datum of this trellis, and it's a low datum, and it's intimate in areas on the side of the house. I actually think it works well in many areas. And this pitch reminds me of someone who just tried to make it a little more fancier than what it needs to right off the entry. And because of the way that it has a pitch, it doesn't really sync with the roof. The roof, this extended eave is so unique of the home. The roof is like its own language, but this horizontal datum is so nice. And I think what's so nice about it is the horizontality that it creates through this datum and trees, going through it. I think the entry is just as good and strong without it, because it has this nice cantilever. It almost greets you to pull you in. But those are the reasons why we removed it. It felt a little added on to try to signal entry when I feel like it already is doing that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Slaymaker.
Yes. First, I want to say how much I appreciate the care given to keep the footprint of the overall house in the same area it's in. And also, I want to thank the owners for keeping up with the neighbors in the loop of their project. I think that's so important and not often the case when working on the lagoon. It's such a hard situation to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
As far as the new entry fence and gate, I think the placement is wonderful, and it gives privacy also, and just a welcoming addition to the change. And the entry overhang myself, I think is a much better architectural addition to the pitched roof. I think it makes the lines of the front of the house much cleaner and works better with the overall entry of the house. I agree with my commissioners on the planting on the side. I'm a little worried about how that's going to work. And I thought possibly making the pavers not quite as large might help, but that's just a suggestion. And as far as the trellis, I understand removing of most of the trellis is good, and I think it should, but I wonder if possibly just on the back of the house where the kitchen and family room, maybe it should stay for the wisteria to grow to break up that glass, the all glass on the back of the house. I like your idea about changing the hot tub and the barbecue to the side. I think it's an amazing job you've done switching the kitchen and the family room and removing the fireplace. I think that's going to be so beneficial for the flow of the house. I won't go into everything else. As far as the lighting, I think if you're using those small recessed lights like you're talking about that are specific to the area, that it shouldn't be a big problem. So I can make the findings, but I would like to see a real landscape plan, possibly, and a real lighting plan. So I can make the findings.
Thank you. Commissioner Hart, please.
Hello.
I did visit with you and we talked about everything that has been raised here. And I am really, really impressed with how you have massaged the whole inside to make it a lagoon facing house, which it definitely isn't now. As you said, you stay in the back by the kitchen and never go out in front, and you can hardly see the lagoon except sliver here and sliver there. So I really commend you for having thought
you.
that out. That really, really has done wonders for the house. And removing the excessive trellis, I'm all for that. The windows that Commissioner Burke brought up, they do not bother me. I think the window upstairs, it's far enough tucked back that I don't think it's going to make that big an impact. And on the north side, I think it's okay because it goes with all the other windows. And for privacy, I don't think that will be an issue, and it hasn't been raised by the neighbors either. But I'm still very much against having the hot tub that far out on your primary outdoor space facing the public lagoon. And I can make I like that you've moved it to one side at least. I think if it then gets moved even further down that wall, you were talking about, yes, but there are some rose bushes and so on. The garden in this house is pretty new. They can easily be moved. So I don't see that as a problem.
There's this tree, it's not doing too well, but there would be that would probably have to be removed. And then this is where we're proposing that new tree
Yeah,
here.
that new tree.
Yep.
Well, I would nearly put the new tree where the one that looks a little sickly and put the hot tub inside the tree would be my choice. But for everything else that's on here and maybe a tweaking of the canned lights up in the very, very high ceiling, if that can be looked at again. I can make all the findings, but I cannot make the findings for the hot tub way out on the front terrace facing public lagoon.
The first option that I showed.
Yeah, no, that, but
Or
even
as
the,
is.
even the other one,
Oh.
I'm a little, so I don't know if that falls under landscaping only. And that I can approve the house and the remodel as proposed and landscaping coming in later.
No, sorry, can you repeat the,
If I can approve and make all the findings for everything but the landscaping part of the hot tub.
She wants to know if the landscaping can improved with the full final landscape and lighting plan. The hot tub. Be
If
included
that's
in that.
included in the landscaping part or.
and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we can condition it to move it in the southwest corner. That's where it would be in this section. We can condition it to have the hot tub be there.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you. Vice Chair Johnson.
All right, so I won't belabor what everyone else has said, but I am also really supportive of this project with a couple caveats. I think the changes you're making are great. They make so much sense to me. It feels like a very interior kind of home, very closed, and you're really doing a lot to open it up and really communicate with the water, which I think is great. Yeah, sorry. I don't have issues with the windows. I think because they're the roof eave comes out and the trellis kind of hides things, so I don't have concerns there. I'm also in agreement about the hot tub and grill, and I think the second option that you showed, this one here, is much better. It could probably get pushed back a little farther. but I think this is much improved than the first option we saw. So I can make the findings, but I would say subject to final landscape. And this is a small thing, but I would also not move the crepe myrtle to the corner. I think you want something green there, evergreen.
I
So-
think in this scenario, we are not touching that crepe myrtle.
Yeah, okay, but you want something evergreen in that corner is
Great,
what I would like to see there. So otherwise, I can make the findings.
great. Thank you.
Okay, my turn. So, not to belabor it, but I did read the report. I did meet with you, and I do appreciate how open you've been and responsive to everyone's suggestions, from a redesign to a moving of the hot tub and everything in between. So I think my concerns are kind of along what everyone else has about the location of the hot tub, and getting more of a sort of formal landscaping plan. The lighting plan, though, I don't think you're changing any lighting outside. And we don't really get into lighting in the interior that we can control. So that's not part of our design review, interior lighting. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct.
Thank you. So, but if you do decide to change some of those exterior lights that we had talked about, that can
Yes.
also go on the final landscape plans if they change their mind.
Okay,
So I think I can make all the findings for the design review with the conditions that have been brought up. Let me say what the conditions I have and make sure that we're all on the same page. Condition the location of the hot tub and the barbecue. The hot tub to the south, no, it's not southwest, it's.
you can call it
yeah.
Southwest.
You call it southwest?
Yeah.
Really? Southwest corner. And then the barbecue could be in the place that you mentioned in plan number 2.
Great.
And then a final light and landscaping plan. And then the other thing that's not on here that I find that we should have at least a statement of what it is the actual colors the house is.
Yes,
So we should know it's Benjamin Moore, whatever, or whatever. So we need to know what those names are. So it would be conditioned on getting the names of the paint, just so that have all our i's and t's dotted.
correct.
So, but, and I didn't hear consensus on the redesign suggestions, even though some of them were very good.
Thank you. No, I'm fine with finding for design review. I think you've done a great job. I just couldn't help myself
That's okay.
doing the changes.
Let's talk after. Thank you.
All right.
And I
Maybe you're
didn't,
gonna hire me.
I didn't hear anybody else talk about the trellis out in front, pitch trellis.
So I didn't, I
You just
know,
want that
I-
preserved or
I
not?
actually like the way your redesign of the simple, getting rid of that trellis and the entryway. I think it's much cleaner.
there was no support on that one.
Yeah.
And there was no real support on the trellis in the back either. So, yeah, so, so I think that with those conditions, I think we can ask for a motion for this project.
I move to adopt the resolution granting design review for the property located at 49 Peninsula Road as conditioned.
Second,
Roll call, please.
Lasky,
yes.
Slimaker,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Store,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Carapiet.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you all.
Okay, moving on to item number 3, 101 Golden Gate Avenue. May we have a staff report, please?
ahead. Thank you, Chair Carapiet and members of the Planning Commission. For your consideration this evening is an application for design review to remove 11 visually significant trees and provide new landscaping at 101 Golden Gate Avenue. This project is being continued from the March Planning Commission meeting. The project proposes to remove 9 eucalyptus trees ranging in size from 23 to 58 inches in diameter at breast height, and 2 Monterey pine trees 23 to 34 inches in diameter. Here are views of the eucalyptus trees from Belvedere Avenue, the westernmost pine tree from Belvedere Avenue, and the pine tree along Golden Gate Avenue. The city arborist provided a report on the 11 trees recommending each to be removed. 3 of the eucalyptus trees were found to have crossing limbs that increased the risk of limb failure. Monterey pines were infected with pitch pine canker and not likely to recover. The remaining trees were generally in good health, but were considered a fire hazard risk by the arborist. The project would plant 3 coast live oaks in 15-gallon pots, 7 Toyon to 15 feet tall in 5-gallon pots, 5 California lilac to 12 feet and 15-gallon pots, and 4 San Gabriel flannel bush to 12 feet in 10-gallon pots. Staff notes general plan policy CD 1.1 stating the removal of trees, vegetation, rock, and soil should be kept at a minimum. The project would be categorically exempt from CEQA. Staff has received 1 letter from Elizabeth Breckus in support of the project. Ms. Breckus has provided a supplemental arborist report by Horticultural Associates for your consideration. Both of these documents have been included in your packets. Staff suggests the commission hear from the property owner, receive public comments, and consider the information. 2 separate resolutions have been provided for the commission's consideration, 1 for approval and 1 for denial for the requested design review applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Did the applicant want to make a statement or representative?
You, Chair and members of the commission. Elizabeth Breckus, Breckus Law Partners, representing the applicant and also the property owner. And we appreciate how much time you took on this before and opportunity to continue the item to give you additional information. One of the pieces of information we wanted to provide you is just there was some discussion back and forth about how the arborist report that you had the last time came to you and who commissioned it. And we just appreciate staff making it clear. It was a city arborist. It was paid for by the applicant because that's the rule that you would have the applicant pay for that. But it's the city arborist that has been retained and is on retention with the city. And his report is quite brief, which is why my clients thought it was advisable to get a second report. The report by John Meserve, who's an arborist who does a lot of work in the city, is further evidence that the commission has regarding the trees. He concurred completely with the city arborists, both in terms of how close these trees are to residences and also to street and why that's an unacceptable risk. Also as to the condition of the pines as being diseased. In addition, he had a concern about the integrity of these trees, given how the roots are above ground and they are between 2 streets and they've got cross limbs and they're very close to each other. So you don't have the option of limbing them up in the way that one would recommend if you could, if they were further apart and less dense. He noted 1 tree is leaning, but he also had extreme concerns about the fire hazard of these trees. My clients and other neighbors who are interested are here to talk to you about those issues. Some of the concerns they had maybe were not as well articulated as they would like to. Some of the comments they would like to respond that were made after public comment closed the last time. We do not feel that there is sufficient evidence contrary or contradicting these assessments. And so we think the evidence in the record and before the city is not in dispute as to the condition of the trees and the need for removal. Absolutely commend you on wanting to preserve trees. Fun fact, I think Ross and Belvedere are the two towns that really anguish the most about tree removal that I have observed. And I think it's an important community value to preserve trees. And when you look at a group of trees that has been there for a long time, that instinct is even more there for commissioners. And I understand that. My clients understand that. But the tree replacement with natives is a very good option here. And as my clients indicated previously, they are willing to be very flexible with the box size. So if that is desired, that certainly will be done. With respect to the issue of city liability, safety is the most important job for public leaders. And while design and aesthetics of the community are certainly what most of the job of planning commissioners is, that instinct has to bend to safety. And here, I think there is a very compelling reason to consider the safety and the concern of these neighbors who all live next to and within striking distance of these trees. So with that, if you don't mind, I'd like to have some of the surrounding neighbors and the applicant and owner speak.
So we can hear from the neighbors during the public comment period. If the owner wanted to make a statement now, we could hear that.
Sure. Thank you. And I'm also here to address any questions if you
Sure.
have any.
So before you go, let's see, does anyone here have questions for Ms. Breckus? Nope. Not now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eva Hassan and I live on 101 Golden Gate Avenue. And thank you so much for your time today to hear me one more time, asking you again, please, to consider our application to remove those trees. This last winter has been very hard. If you came to the site and you observed how much debris these trees have shed, some of them were broken in half. They broke in an undeterministic way, which could have landed easily on the sides on one of the streets. We are choked by Belvedere and Golden Gate. The last thing I want to see a child crossing by a bike or a mother driving her kids to after school classes, and these incidents happen. So I do ask you please to consider looking into the situation. Those trees are not young trees. They have become old by now. And if you look up in any book, agricultural book, whatever, you will hear that gum trees, as they grow older and they get stressed out, they do shed limbs. They just drop their limbs, and that's a fact about them. And I do consider these trees to be old enough, and I'm not an arborist, and I'm sure you can look at arborist reports as well, but those are concerns to me. My bedroom is right underneath those trees. My neighbors are also, their mailbox as they come out and then pick up these, their mail is under the trees. So there is a considered amount of risk here for us as who live in that space, as well as our neighbors. So please do consider our application. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, does anyone have questions? Okay, Ashley has a question. Kevin?
Yeah, thank you. I am just curious, have these trees been on any kind of pruning or trimming or maintenance schedule?
Well, two things. They have not, but then there is an issue with that. As you heard from our representative, after the ARPIS report, these trees are so intertwined. If you affect that kind of if you create any decoupling, that could compromise their strength in the face of these new weather conditions we're facing. That's kind of the number one. We can trim the limbs that are to the side, that are closer to the street. But again, one of the trees was cracked in half And in an undeterministic way, it could have easily landed on one of the streets. So yes, we can take certain measures to a certain point. But then the rest of it, please don't consider it an act of God, because the last thing we want to hear, someone got affected or lost their lives because of an act of God, something we could have prevented.
Thank you. I have just one more question. Is the landscape architect aware that the stumps would remain in the ground?
Well, we are very, as I stated last time, we are very much open to the city's suggestions on how you want us to treat those stumps. I am not an architect, a landscape architect, and I'm very much open to what you suggest to me, and we get it implemented. You have an open invitation to whatever you want to suggest to do with those stumps.
Larry?
Yeah, I think really what you'd have to do is address the geotechnical issues of removal, because that looks like an old slide. And it looks to me like those trees were put there to stabilize an old slide originally, and removal could actually activate it. So I think if you're going to get into all that, you have to if you're going to talk about removing it, you're probably going to have to address the geotechnical side.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I just have
Marcia?
one, question. So tonight we are really just addressing 104. We're not talking about the trees on 101. Is that correct?
No, you have it backwards.
Just 101 tonight.
Just 101.
You have the
I meant
address
101,
backwards.
not 104. That's
Correct.
what I meant.
So I have a question that kind of follows up on Commissioner Johnson's question. So above and beyond trimming and other maintenance on the trees, I'm not sure what storm, because we had so many storms this year that the limbs came down. But in not my visit now, but in March, the vegetation on the ground has never been cleared up, and the limb has never been cut up and taken away. And that in itself is a fire hazard. So why haven't you cleaned it up?
May I correct you on that one, please? The backyard was actually cleaned up 2 years ago, and then we took a lot of dirt out of it. So if that was not the case, we did the work along with 105, I think, when they were cutting the trees. So we used the same arborist. We cleaned up the yard. We took a lot of containers out of there, so that was cleaned up. So why haven't we cleaned? Because we really were hoping this project would get done, and therefore the cleanup will be part of that. If this gets denied again, we have to do something about it.
So you came to the city in June of last year asking for the same design review, first as an exception and then as a design review exception for this same project that's before us tonight. And
I didn't come. It wasn't me.
well, you didn't come before us, but you came to the city. There was an application, and it could possibly have been your neighbor made the application, but there was an application for your property in June of 22 asking for this exact project. And at that time, our director of building and planning approved I forget which ones they are, but the tree in the front, the pine tree or whatever it is, and the one that goes through the decking to be removed. And that if you wanted to remove the eucalyptus, it had to come for design review.
Well,
So the condition in the backyard has been like that for a long time. It's, to be cleaned up. I'm just talking about, loose debris where a gardener comes in and rakes up and.
I'm sorry, but like the loose debris has been regularly being cleaned up by my gardener. The eucalyptus trees shed a lot of shell from their trees, and he has been working until this year when the storm created a lot more limbs for us and broke trees in half. I do beg your forgiveness, but I know my backyard, and that is inaccurate.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, let's open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak on this matter? Please come forward and state your name.
Good evening. I'm Betty Hassler, and I live at 102 Golden Gate. I've lived there for 28 years, and I have watched those scary trees grow and grow and grow. And I have two pleas for you. One is really about safety. With those winds that were sustained at 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, and then the gust of 45 miles an hour, I was terrified in my own home. And I had to go downstairs and take my dog with me. I was just very, very afraid. I would invite any of you to come over during one of those storms and tell me that you're not terrified. So that's my main plea to you. And I would also say that as far as 102 is concerned, taking those trees down does nothing for our view. It's not about that. I am literally terrified, and I've grown more terrified every year with these storms. And I was actually on the phone in the March meeting, but I couldn't figure out the technology to you guys to call on me to speak. But I would have said the same then. But I remember in that meeting, there were a couple of things brought up about how those trees are a windbreak. Those trees are not a windbreak for our home. The windbreak was the trees that were planted along 1 Belvedere Avenue that were taken down in the recent construction. That's when it became a wind tunnel at our house. And I don't think it's going to get any worse with those eucalyptus trees down, because the only break is the trunks themselves, which is not much of a break. So I would just appeal to you on those two grounds. I'm happy to take your questions.
No, thank you very much. We appreciate you stepping forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Geneva Michaelchuk, and I have been, I'm at 104 Golden Gate, and I have been the neighbor that's been taking point on this. My family moved to 104 Golden Gate in 2018, or was it, I think it was 18, it was 18 or 19. But when I started getting to know my neighbors, one of the first things that Betty Hassler shared with me, she's my next door neighbor, was her concern about the trees. And she said that she and the Hassans had been talking about removing those trees for about 10 years, but it had never quite gotten momentum. And she was really concerned. And that was the year we moved in was the first of the 2 years that we had the really bad fires. And everyone was just so worried about the fires. We certainly were. And I offered to take point on this project for all of us and knew that there were several neighbors interested. So that's why you've seen my name on everything. I had the time and the energy to see if we could get this done. So I still do believe these trees are a risk. I live uphill, fire moves uphill. I know there is some doubt as to whether they are a fire danger, but I'm concerned. I'm certainly concerned about how narrow that slice of land is between the two roads and how tall those trees are. And I know a lot of trees, eucalyptus trees came down in the storms in the winter in San Francisco. Big old trees just fell over because there was so much more water than any of us have ever expected. And concerned about the neighbors downhill, concerned about the people on the roads. And we hope you'll consider our request to remove those trees and replace them with native trees that will start a new legacy of beautiful trees there that can be safe for all of us, that can hold the land in place, that can perhaps create a windbreak for the Hasslers and alleviate the safety concerns of everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Anyone on Zoom, Nancy? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back for discussion. And Vice Chair Johnson, would you like to start us off?
Thank you. I appreciate all the additional information. So I have visited this site a few times now. I have taken a lot of time to educate myself on eucalyptus trees, so AMA. I think that you said this, somebody said this, the fire hazard issue, which keeps coming up, is actually, there's a lot of disagreement about that. I know that they do have more oil in the leaves, but we can parse that out later. I think my biggest issue, my biggest concern has to do with the 9 eucalyptus. I understand the 2 Monterey pines are at this point pretty diseased. I understand that pitch canker can actually be cured. It's not always fatal. Trees can recover from it with proper pruning, maintenance, trimming, all of that. But I wouldn't, as much as I would be sad to see them go, I understand for those 2 trees that there is some decay and some issues with them. I would be okay seeing those replaced with something, but I would want to see something of equal size and stature. But there, I think what's being suggested is not quite enough to replace those. As for the eucalyptus, I think I said this last time too, but I think that removing them, all 9 trees, would cause more harm than good. I think we have to look at them much more holistically as a really important, not just a feature of the land, and they've been there for a long time, but they're also home to a lot of animals. And the monarch butterflies, for one, roost in the trees. We know that those are in danger, so we have to be thinking about it much more broadly. These trees are also, because of their size and their age, they're really good at carbon sequestration. So in terms of climate change, I also worry that taking down trees of this size and age is really problematic for us. Having said that, I really think that these trees, with proper ongoing maintenance, pruning, trimming, would be made a lot safer. And I know that I saw some of the branches had come down. I know that the winds got really strong this past season. But a lot of that can be fixed with regular care. And it's clear that they have not been maintained or pruned at all. So I think I would really like to see some sort of maintenance plan, which would really, I think, go a long way to addressing some of the safety concerns. I know branch drop is a big concern. That can really be, that danger can be reduced significantly with proper pruning. There is one tree that has an exposed root. I think it's kind of more on the north side. I don't know how much more dangerous that makes it than the other trees, but both arborist reports indicate that the trees are all in really good health. There's no decay. They're referencing, again, a fire hazard, but we have a letter from the fire marshal who's saying he doesn't have concerns from a fire perspective. So I don't know that it's necessarily the arborist purview to be commenting on the fire hazard. I think they're really looking at, is it diseased, decaying, dying? Does it need to come out for that reason? So that's my perspective. I would love to hear from other commissioners, but like I said, I could support the removal of the 2 Monterey pine, assuming there was something replacing them that was of equal size. But I cannot make the findings for the eucalyptus.
Thank you. Commissioner Hart?
I have visited, I drive by the eucalyptus trees several times a day, and I have for the last 53 years. I also live on Eucalyptus Road. And today when I came down here, I counted 6 or 7 huge eucalyptus trees growing on eucalyptus or up on Golden Gate. And they are beautiful, well-maintained trees. Around them, the gardens, the houses, nothing is full of debris, branches lying anywhere. They have just been uplimbed and have been taken care of. And I have some eucalyptus trees in my view, and for the last 4 days, I've been actually watching 2 huge, and I don't know what kind of hawks they are, but they are building a nest and bringing in branches and using the trees as their habitat. And I think like Commissioner Johnson says, it's definitely a bigger picture in my mind than just view. And which I know is one of the driving forces behind this. That we have all these animals that at least the people that have lived here a long time, we really appreciate sharing our city with. And they are the hawks and the ospreys and the barn owls and the screech owls, and you name it, they are in our trees, and they will not come and live in a 5-foot little toyon bush or a 5-gallon oak tree planted. We will decimate without real intention, but we will really take away what we need to preserve, in my humble opinion, for our surroundings and our well-being. I think the pine trees, as Commissioner Johnson said, I'm not an arborist, but I think they are not given a death sentence. I think they could be saved, but then again, that would take an interest and a pocketbook to do. And I can see them maybe being removed, but also replanted by something more substantial that would take their place. And then the 9 eucalyptus trees, I've looked at them and counted them. And I think if it is the danger that they're so close to each other, maybe you can remove 4 of them and leave 5, or the other way around, remove 5 and leave 4, the biggest ones, and really give them the arborists' attention they need. Yeah, I really have to go back to my original last meeting's decision that I cannot make the findings to remove these trees because of the debris and the low maintenance that they have received.
Thank you. Commissioner Slaymaker.
Thank you. I also have struggled with this situation from the beginning, and I do think that I could approve the removal of the Monterey pines, hopefully with some substitution. But as far as the eucalyptus, I drive by them maybe 4 or 5 times a day and have for over 30 years. So they have been there, and this will dramatically change this area. So anything that goes in the place of it, I don't see years being able to come up to what we have now. So I know that there are so many eucalyptus trees in Belvedere that have been trimmed. I've also trimmed some myself that seem to be doing fine. And I know we had a horrible rain and windy year, but they have survived just as these trees have. So at this time, as far as the eucalyptus trees, I cannot make the findings.
Thank you. Commissioner Burke.
Yeah, thank you. I've been to the site many times, and and I've observed the debris that's at the base of the trees. I also went back and reread the report from the last meeting from, I believe it's Arbor Science. And I was one of the commissioners that asked for a second opinion because I didn't feel like that one was sufficient in terms of its, claim that there was a safety hazard. I feel now that I've seen a second report, I'm now leaning more towards concern with the potential safety hazard of these eucalyptus trees. And so I could make a finding for the removal conditional on substantial trees replacing them. Live oaks, probably 48-foot boxes. But it would have to be done with some professional who would advise on, what would happen when the trees were removed in terms of the stability of the slope or the hill, because we don't want to solve one problem and create another. So I could make the finding for the eucalyptus. I also can make the finding for the Monterey pines. I don't think the Toyon trees are sufficient for replacing those. I think something more substantial and certainly in a box size of 36 inches or more would be appropriate. But I think that can be submitted after the fact, I believe, to the chair. So that's where I stand at this point.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Store.
Yeah, I just gotta say, these great trees, you maintain them, they eventually fall over. And it's that catastrophic event that is of concern. And I think we've been warned by two arborists. There's no arborists up here. Been warned by two arborists that's an issue, and that they've recommended removal of the trees. So following our last meeting in March, when I went home after the meeting, because I was concerned about safety, I asked our lawyer, what do we do when we have a applicant come in and ask for application to remove trees because they're concerned about safety? We asked the safety question. If we deny this, the city takes on some liability. If a branch falls on somebody walking by and kills them or hurts them, and somebody looks it up and finds out that we denied it, them removing the tree, yes, you're going to get into this fight about whether they maintain the tree properly, but I think it's an issue. Anyway, I went home that night. I turned on the TV. There was all those storms. There was lots of large trees that had been pushed over. They were on top of cars. They were on top of houses, and 2 people had been killed. So I was convinced that we would be making a mistake if we don't allow them to remove these trees. Now, I think your issues about what to replace them with are valid, and I think that stumps should stay there because of the geotechnical issues. I don't think they should be taken out. And I think they'll stay alive. They'll have to continue to be trimmed because the eucalyptus just come right back. We had one when I was young and living in Berkeley. It was probably 6-8 feet across, and we had to take it down because of the same issues. It was right in the backyard. Kids were playing in the backyard. So I'm familiar with the debris and the mess and all that can come about. So I can make the findings to remove these trees. And I think that area needs refreshing. I mean, if these things are old, they're just posts sticking up, and the greenery is way up in the sky. I don't buy I appreciate your comment about the windscreen. I don't buy that. Fire hasn't been my issue. It's been more safety. I think that we need to be careful what we do here. And as far as what they're planning to replace, my comments from last time still stand. I think the proposed trees are too close to the road, need to be set back from the road further. But those comments I made last time. So I can make the findings to approve removal of all the trees that we're talking about here.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lasky, please.
This is very difficult, and I too have been here probably 50 years, and I see them every day. And there have been really some strong windstorms, and they're still there. So I don't know if it would be a compromise. I mean, I certainly agree with taking out the Monterey pines, and one of them is half of it fell off. They're very weak, and they're infested with bark beetle probably. But one of the arborists also said that these trees don't show any signs of rooting instability, but 3 of them have crossing limbs. So I don't know whether that would be a possibility to probably take out those 3 eucalyptus And it also would thin them out a little bit. So I could approve taking out 3 of them and keeping the rest and taking out the pines, but absolutely not to take out the stumps and absolutely no herbicide on the stumps, which is what one of the arborists proposed. And the trees going in would be 24 to 36 inch box oaks. They have to be that big, otherwise, it'll take 100 years. So those are my comments.
Can I just ask for clarification because I didn't quite hear it? Did you say no stump removal?
I did. And also, I don't think the stumps should be treated with an herbicide.
Right.
And I have a lot of eucalyptus trees near where I live. And some of the neighbors trim them all the time and they're fine. They come out and they're cut back again. It's very easy to do. And also by doing that, they're holding the hillside because of the root structure.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. So to not belabor this much more, I am in agreement with, I believe, somewhat the majority here, that the 2 pine trees can be removed. They were actually approved to be removed last June or July. But I also struggle with the 9 eucalyptus. I'm a bit in the camp with the 3 with the cross limbs, that maybe those are the ones that should come out. But I also am hearing from my other commissioners on maybe more tree removal and or all tree removal. And I wonder if it makes sense to ask our city arborist to give us more information other in identifying the 3 that are actually cross-limbed, and then give us more information on the remaining 6 as far as what would be needed on those. So I'm not sure we have, I'm sorry, I'm struggling here. I'm not sure we have a majority in agreement, because we have some people saying take out 3 or 4 or 5 trees and some saying no trees. So I guess what's before us is the removal of the 9 trees. So our choices are to continue this to get more information. Because I also had communication with Mike Lantier that eucalyptus, the city of Belvedere is not in a urban wildfire interface, and therefore does not carry the quote unquote shall remove on eucalyptus. And that he also said the older the eucalyptus, the more fire resistant they are than smaller ones, but that they do need to be maintained. And I think that that's part of something that we're facing here, is a lack of maintenance. So we can either continue this, get some more information, or we can take a vote just on what's before us tonight, the removal of all 9 trees.
You might break it into 2, however, since there seems to be a stronger feeling about the Monterey Pines. You might consider
The
calling for
Monterey
a vote on
Pines,
those.
yeah, the Monterey Pines can come out. They've already been approved to come out. They were approved, I believe it was last July by Irene Borba for the 2 pine trees to come out. So
3 or 2?
2.
Because they're asking for 3 now, I believe.
2.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No, that's okay.
So then they don't need approval
There's
for
one in the
that.
front and then one in the back that goes through the deck. Right.
So it's really just the other 6 that are in.
I mean, we can separate this and do another approval.
They don't, do they need, well, has the other approval expired?
Well, it's been, I mean, it's July, so it's almost expired.
I would redo that then.
Okay.
And then take up the eucalyptus trees separately and see if there's a consensus for how to proceed.
Okay, so let's separate this. And can I have a motion for the removal of the 2 pine trees?
So moved.
A second? Roll call?
Yes.
Slaymaker,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Store,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Yes.
Erpiet.
Yes. Okay, now we have the 9 trees. So let's bring that back for a little bit of discussion.
I'm sorry, I remembered hearing that if we were to remove those pine trees, there would be a replacement for the 2, potentially. Is that?
So, yeah, so we need a replacement with those trees, but I don't think the one pine tree can't go through the deck again. That's stupid.
No, I don't think we
I mean,
can
it
do
just
that.
needs to be relocated somewhere else.
Yes.
And I'm not sure for the pine tree that's in the front, in the corner, if there's any room to replant a tree there or not without removing the stump. Did anyone observe that?
There's not a lot of room. I think
There's
we
not a
need
lot
it.
of room.
Mhm.
Just removing.
So we should probably have at least 1 tree in the back, or do 2 trees, do 2 in the back. Okay.
Just the whole part, okay.
All right, so we're going to redo the motion. We're going to go back. Groundhog Day. Okay, we're going to have a motion for the removal of the 2 pine trees and with 2 replacement trees in the back along Belvedere Avenue to be specified and approved by planning and the chair of the planning commission on a final landscape plan. Now we can move on, I think, to the 9. Thank you. To the 9 eucalyptus. Okay.
Do we have-
Second.
Oh, we got to have roll call. Second, did we get a motion, Kevin?
So moved.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
roll call.
Lasky,
Yes.
Slaymaker,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Store,
Yes.
Hart,
Yes.
Pat.
Yes. Thank you. All right, so now we're back to the 9 eucalyptus trees. We have 2 commissioners saying taking it out, and then we have 2 saying no trees coming out. We have 1 that says 4 to 5. We have 2 that say the 3 that are crossed limb maybe could come out. So do we have a consensus on the 9 trees to either approve or deny? So let's do a little poll. So Marcia, you said the 3.
Yeah, I think it's a good compromise to perhaps take the 3 out that have crossing limbs that seem to be dangerous of having the limbs fall.
And Commissioner Lasky? how
I
do you
would
think?
agree with that.
Commissioner Johnson?
My concern with that is that we've ended up with that situation because they have not been maintained properly and that we're just waiting for this to, right.
Right.
So no, I don't support that. I would support removing those sections of the tree, removing those limbs and any limbs that pose a danger. So pruning and maintaining, but I don't support removing those 3.
Okay,
I could go along with that.
I agree.
Mhm.
okay, so note 3, no tree removals. Kevin, have you changed your mind?
I'm sorry. So now there's not 3 tree, it's just limbs?
No, there's now there's 3, no removal of the 9 trees, but just maintenance.
Got it. And no removal. I still am going to defer to the 2 experts that have weighed in so far that there is a safety issue. I mean, if 3, I could agree to 3 trees to, at least as a starting point to mitigate some of the safety issues, but it sounds like that's off the table now too. So I would
Well, no, everything's still on the table.
So I could get comfortable with the 3 trees because that would mitigate it versus the 9. That's better to me than nothing and would go to support the recommendations from the 2 experts.
Okay. No movement.
Again, no, again, we are not arborists. How do you pick the trees that you allow to survive from a commission point of view? I don't think we're in a position to do that. And how do you identify which ones they are?
Arborist
It's
will.
not that is not something we should be doing. And second, I think you're underestimating the liability to the city in this decision. I know we all want to save the trees. I know we like big trees, but these have been around a long time. They're very big. And the arborists tell us they pose a risk. We know we've seen them falling around the Bay Area. So I can't believe that we're going to try to make that kind of a decision, which trees should be saved from this panel when we're not arborists.
Okay.
So, no, I can't support it. I can approve the,
Can you support another report that would clearly identify those trees that truly should come out versus ones that would, with proper maintenance? would
yeah,
survive?
if the arborist that tells you that the trees that you leave do not pose a safety risk and there'll be no liability that we take on by allowing those to stay, I could support that. But I
Well-
don't know that you're really going to find that.
Well, you're never going to get an arborist to say.
You're not going to get it. Yeah, it's a
No,
risk.
I
It's a risk. And I think you're underestimating the risk with big, huge trees.
Okay, Nana?
Kevin wanted to say
Oh,
something.
sorry, I missed you.
Well,
Kevin.
no worries. I was just going to say, I mean, the only thing that we should also consider is that, I mean, if we're saying, big trees need to be removed or big ukes need to be removed, then we would be saying we should remove them from the entire island. And so I think or every tree poses a risk, you could argue, because every tree that's tall and big has limbs that could fall. So I think there's an extreme that we need to be thinking about, or there has to be some middle ground.
I hear, and I thought about that, but the trees that our fellow commissioners have been driving by that are well maintained, those are trees that the owners have decided to take that risk and they want to retain those trees. They aren't afraid of their trees. So they aren't asking to remove the trees. Here we have somebody who is afraid of the trees, neighbors are afraid of the trees, that it might damage their property or hurt them. And I think we have to listen to that. And in those cases, I think we are taking on a liability that we don't want to take on if we deny somebody who's afraid of these big trees.
Okay, Nana?
I can support Commissioner Johnson's suggestion, or maybe it was Lasky, that have an arborist come and look at the trees that pose a danger with crossing branches and so on, and give a report on that.
A point of clarity, would you also be asking for information about the other 6 eucalyptus? Because he indicates that there's a danger, but he doesn't explain why or how those other 6 are dangerous.
I would suggest that if we have the arborist come back, that there would be a clear report on every single tree,
Yeah.
other than the Monterey pines, which could have been gone last year. So I think that I think if everyone's in agreement, I would like to see this go back to our city arborist with a more detailed report on every eucalyptus tree, with a recommendation of either what maintenance needs to be done to each tree, and or if he recommends removal. And if he recommends removal, the reason why he recommends removal. And then I think the commission would be able to make a fair evaluation and decision.
Chair Copia,
So, I guess we're, okay, so it's to the applicant. You have your choices if you want us to continue to get more information or take a vote.
We request that you take a vote.
Okay. All right, so let's have a, should we do the motion for approval and take account, and then the motion for denial and take account and see who wins?
I would allow whatever motion comes up and seconded to be voted. It might be a motion for granting, denying, or granting in part or denying in part. Obviously, the motion should be specific as to what part they're approving and which part they're denying.
Okay, so we took the pine trees off. So if we sit there and say, can we sit there and say we approve whatever trees the arborist can justify to come out, or?
That would be one approach. It's not the approach that the applicant's attorney just recommended, because that would be deferring the matter.
Okay.
If you want to come to a decision tonight, there could be a motion to, for example, remove the 3 trees with the cross branches and deny the application as to the remaining 3 trees. And then if that motion gets a second, you call the vote. And if it doesn't get a second, or if it doesn't win a majority of the commissioners here tonight, then somebody else could craft a motion.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I just have a question. Shall we move that we take out, I'm talking to Ashley, the cross branches, or do you want to take out the whole tree? Do you want to, would you prefer just removing the cross branches that need to be maintained?
That would be my preference, is that the trees stay in, but the branches that pose a risk that have been identified, that those are removed.
So I will make a motion as to that, that the 3 trees that have cross branches on them are to be maintained and the branches removed. And the rest of the, okay, so that's the motion.
I think that you should also add that all the trees be maintained. Because if we don't maintain all of the trees, then it was to whoever said it, Kevin or Larry, that, you know, we're not correcting the situation. We're just allowing it to exist and expand into a direction that nobody wants it to go.
And so the remainder of the 6 trees to be maintained, and therefore we are actually denying design review for the 6 trees that are to remain.
Well, it's all
No,
9.
Yeah.
So
no.
we're
Okay.
denying approval to remove 9 trees and requesting that all 9 are maintained, and that the 3 with the cross limbs
Correct.
in danger of falling are taken care of.
Good.
Correct.
Okay.
So you're making a motion to deny the removal of the 9 trees with approval for the maintenance on the 3 cross limbs.
Point of clarification, if none of the trees are to be removed, it would be a simple denial of the application. And that could carry with it, the resolution could carry with it a finding that the owner should pursue the option of properly maintaining the trees, which would include removal of those cross limbs. But it's a denial. It would be a full denial.
Okay, and we don't need to condition it with that?
You can't condition a denial.
Okay. Okay. so-
Just speaking of that, the resolution before us for denial has a bunch of conditions. Did those get removed? They shouldn't be there. There's a whole bunch of stuff that just got left in. I sent a note in about that, but I guess it got missed.
Oh, it's all the normal conditions.
Yeah, it's all the normal conditions that, yeah, they shouldn't be in this
Okay, so
resolution.
let's get this right. The motion that's on the table is a denial of the removal of the 9 trees and that the owner maintained the trees. Correct? Okay, and that items A through J in the resolution is removed. Did we get that correct?
Can we be specific about the maintenance of the trees? that-
Again, pardon me for interrupting.
Right.
If you're not issuing a permit,
Okay.
you have no grounds for imposing
A
conditions.
condition, okay, thank you.
So do we need a motion or do we?
I'm making sure we have the motion right.
I'm just double checking the conditions to be removed.
No problem.
Chair Kirby, I think we're voting on what's before us. We're either denying the application or we're approving the application.
We're denying the
And if we're going to
application.
approve it, then we can make conditions.
So-
Correct, but if you're denying, then I would say you would strike the after Golden Gate Avenue, the paragraph that begins now therefore be it resolved. You would put a period after Golden Gate Avenue and strike what follows until you get to the passed and adopted, which obviously stays in. So the motion would be motion to adopt the resolution disapproving the application, but striking the language that I just indicated.
Okay. So I think that's our motion with the additional striking of the resolution. So may I have a second?
Second.
Motion is to deny.
Right, so that's what the motion on the table is. So now we're going to see what the vote is.
Who was it that issued the second? Okay, thank you.
Ashley.
Okay, roll call. Lasky,
Yes.
Slaymaker,
Yes.
Johnson,
Sorry, we're doing roll call or are we doing vote?
No, roll call vote
roll call vote.
for denial.
For denial, okay, thank you.
I know,
Sorry,
that
I
gets, yeah.
Yes.
Burke,
No.
Store,
No.
Hart,
Yes.
Carpiet.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-2.
Okay, moving on to item number 4, 135 Belvedere Avenue. May we please have a staff report?
Chair Carapiet,
We have
I'm
some
going to
recusals.
recuse myself because I am neighbor.
Bye, Kevin.
I'm recusing myself as well for the same reason.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Claire.
I also have to recuse myself because I'm a neighbor.
You want a break? We need a potty break? Okay. Right, I'm gonna go to the potty.
I'm getting, I'll do my best. Okay, I'm gonna go out really slowly.
Okay, I'll call our session back into order or meeting back on to order. And can we have the city report for 135 Belvedere, please?
Okay. Thank you again, Chair Carapiet and members of the Planning Commission. For your consideration this evening is an application that was introduced in September of 2022 and continued at the April 2023 Planning Commission meeting. The application is for demolition permit, design review, exception of total floor area, conditional use permit, and revocable license at 135 Belvedere Avenue to demolish an existing residence and construct a new 9,936 square foot single-family home with associated structures. Many of the project elements are unchanged from the April meeting. The proposed changes will be outlined in this presentation and are included in your staff reports. The project has been modified from the April meeting to convert the storage space above the garage into a 790 square foot ADU and 181 square foot storage area. The revised structure would be raised 14 inches from the April submission and would have a maximum height of 19 feet and 5 inches from grade. The April submittal included strip lights at the handrails and stairs, accent lights at the veranda and passageways. It included planter lights at the citrus trees, palms, and magnolia, and handrail lighting along the exterior staircase leading down to the boat dock. These lights are all proposed for removal. 2 wall sconces will be added down here below the veranda for the new submission. An addendum to the 2017 mitigated negative declaration was deemed appropriate for this project, as the project would not create any new significant environmental effects from the 2017 approval. Staff recommends the Planning Commission can adopt the resolutions granting the project entitlements for 135 Belvedere. Thank you.
And can we hear from the applicant, please? Oh, does anyone have questions of staff? Sorry.
Yes, I do. So I reviewed our code on the ADU 19.79. And I don't see how this proposed ADU can be considered for staff approval since it doesn't conform to the requirements for staff approval. The required setbacks are not met and the property is large enough and to allow an up to 800 square foot ADU and meet all the setback requirements. So I'm hoping you can speak to that.
Sure. Tonight we aren't necessarily reviewing the ADU, but if we were, the rationale behind approving it ministerially is that if it were to be located somewhere else on site from what is proposed, it would increase the area of the floor, not the floor area, but the lot coverage, and possibly increase the grading and cut and fill. That is something that the project we wanted to minimize. So based on the area of the project, this was the location that we could fit or the applicant was able to fit a 800 square foot ADU.
To me, that doesn't make it a ministerial approval process. It becomes an approval by this commission because it doesn't meet the requirements for ministerial approval. It can still be where it's located, but it has to come to approval to this commission. And because tonight the square footage of the ADU is not included in what we're approving, we can't, I don't know how we move forward. That's where I'm struggling.
So can I ask a couple questions? What is this, and maybe the architect would know this, what is the slope from the street as it goes down?
I believe it's over 30. And Kurt, if
That is correct.
So I think our municipal code says that if the slope is greater than 20%,
30%.
no, for the ADU, it says 20%.
No, that's for garages.
Well, the garage, okay, so 20% for the garage. And that if you have a living space above or below the garage, that if you don't see the living space from the street, it can be approved.
That's my understanding as well.
Quite true, but it can't be approved ministerially. It has to come to the commission. It says that in that part of the document.
I think that's an exception to the rule.
well,
It's 19.48.90.
Yeah, you want me to read it to you, or how do you want to do this? It's the last sentence. If any spaces exist or are proposed under or above such garage or carport, the garage or carport shall be required to meet the setback requirements for houses and other structures unless such living spaces are located entirely below the elevation of the street at the front lot. So this, that applies here, but it still is not a ministerial approval. It says the MC code 19.48.190F, last sentence. Where does it say it comes to the planning? Oh, okay. So there's a sentence in here. The planning commission's approval of such reduced setbacks shall be based upon the existing streetscape, degree to which the proposed structure does not block existing views from the street and width of the street, and the ability of the applicant to provide off-street parking within the usual setbacks. I don't think that this applies for ministerial approval, number one, because it is in the setback. And the ADU can be fit anywhere on this property that meets the setback and the minimum setback requirements. And that's a requirement for ministerial approval. Now, I agree that setback, well, maybe we're going to get to it. Are you going to be addressing some of this stuff or in your discussion?
I can, absolutely.
Because you made some measurements.
Let's
if I may-
let staff respond.
If I
please.
may, the updated ADU ordinance that was brought to city council in February, that supersedes our code as far as if we can allow an ADU ministerially. Staff, we looked at the ADU and our determination was that that was the one spot that you could put the ADU. It couldn't be placed anywhere else without increasing cut and fill, which is why we allowed the ADU to be placed at a 0 setback. That was the reason that we approved it ministerially.
I can't read that as something that could be approved ministerially. It's not the way it reads. It isn't that exception. It's clearly, if you can fit an ADU on the property and up to 800 square feet, if you can't fit it because of the setbacks, then you can use the 0 front yard setback. But in this case, there's plenty of space in this property so that you can put an ADU anywhere. So it doesn't apply in this case for. And I think we better be very careful because we don't want to set a precedent here. There's going to be other problems that come before us. And we're changing it to, you're changing what was intended by making this a ministerial approval.
I actually very much agree with what you're saying. But because it's not being looked at tonight, anybody that wishes to object to the ADU, I suppose can, if somebody wanted to the ministerial nature of it. But here tonight, it's not being
voted
discussed.
on anyway.
So if staff approves it, and if somebody wanted to object to it, they're within their right to do that, and then we can look at it and address it as staff. But tonight, it's not being discussed.
I don't think that's true. I don't think anybody can object to the ADU.
So, but what Sammy's trying to say is the ADU is not considered in this project. The only thing that we're looking at is the raised 12, 14 inches that the height of the garage went to in order to have the proper height.
Yes, but Pat, then if we do that, we have to add that square footage into what's being approved for design review tonight.
No.
Yes, because you're raising the ceiling and making livable space and it's not ADU. So
Well, I think it's because it's ministerially approved that we don't count that space.
it can't be ministerially approved. That's my point.
Staff determined that it is ministerially able to be approved.
Yeah, but you're making an exception. You're saying because you have to have cut and fill and all that, that's not a consideration. What it clearly states, the You can use that setback, the 0 setback, front setback, only when you can't fit an 800 up to 800 square foot ADU elsewhere in the property and still meet the 4-foot side yard setbacks. So it's very clear that it's trying to make it stop you from doing things like this.
I have to ask Anne to get to her, have her weigh in as well.
Well,
on this.
I think we should move forward because, I mean, a lot of the project, we may have to come back to this to get the commission's approval of the ADU that's being proposed on the top of the garage. I know that's not before us tonight, but that's one solution, is to keep it where it is and come back. So maybe we should go on and deal with some of the rest of this, but I don't agree that it's a ministerial approval.
Well, one item that we would do then, if it's not ministerially approved, it has to meet all the zoning parameters. So if it stayed in that same location, you would be requesting a variance as well.
Yes,
Because you're not.
it would be.
So it would be a variance and additional square footage to the entire project, if that's what was brought before the commission
Yeah.
at another date.
I understand. But I think my main point is that I don't think we want to set a precedence like that. That it's things like that, you can put an ADU on a 0 front yard setback when there's space for it in the back. We don't want, just because they want to fit it in that location ministerially, we don't want that to happen ministerially. We want that to be considered by the planning commission. So
Well, I agree with you. It's a very large lot, but I know that when I've visited the site and it was suggested, can you move it a little here, move it a little there? The answer always was from the architect that they spent months with the soils engineer to determine where they could put the house, in what location, to satisfy our requirement to not have the original cut and fill they had on the project. And that meant everything had to come closer up to the street. Let me finish. Everything had to come closer to the street. And if he moves anything anywhere, it will increase the cut and fill tremendously.
I'm not saying that they have to move the ADU. I'm saying, as proposed, it can't be approved ministerially. It can still be an ADU proposed in that location. It is going to require variances and all that other stuff, but it's not a ministerial approval process.
Well, that I think is up to staff. Is that not correct?
No.
If the proposal squarely fit within the exemption from planning commission review, then yes, that would be a staff level determination. In this case, the front yard setback requirement can be, doesn't apply. If applying it would prevent the construction of an 800 square foot ADU with 4 side and backyard setbacks. And the reason that's relevant is because if the city's cut and fill restrictions preclude creating an 800 square foot ADU elsewhere on the site, then I think you could have an argument that you have to waive the front yard setback requirement.
Okay. All right. So let's proceed on. And that will be determined by staff. And so does anyone else have any questions for for staff? Okay, so let's move on to the applicant's presentation.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you. I'm going to be brief with my comments here. Commissioner Story, I know you said that there are other places on site, and to Pat's, Commissioner Carapet's statement, that gets really tricky. I actually went through the geotechnical report, page 53. You guys have access to that. I actually printed out the color diagram. The soils on this particular site are tricky. It's very steep, and in order to maintain the cut and fill of 45 cubic yards, we had to do exactly what Commissioner Carapet said, which was raise a building and push it to Belvedere Avenue. So they are advising us, because of this cut and fill situation, there is only one place to put that ADU. The other thing I just want to make clear, and I think Sammy touched on this nicely, we made some lighting changes. You have those drawings. We removed a number of fixtures, no uplights in the trees. We took the lighting away from the stair pathway down to the dock and pier. And you can see that on your plan that 4 different types of fixtures were completely eliminated. Let's see here. Marta Fry is on Zoom, so I know she doesn't have anything major to present, but she's certainly here for questions. And I'm going to refer to my notes from our April meeting. I know there were a few, and I'm reading here right now, ideas specifically about trees on Belvedere Avenue, the new plantings. I'll have, I know there was some difference of opinion with the commissioners. Certainly, we're open to those questions, and Marta can answer anything there. Let's see here. Oh, there was also an idea of adding some planters. Again, Marta is here to answer any of those questions. She didn't supply anything new in the way of drawings, but just for the simple reason that we understand that some of these things can be addressed in the conditions of approval, which we are completely open to. That is all I have, I believe.
Okay, does anyone have questions for the applicant or the landscape attorney? Yeah.
I have a question for the landscape architect.
Oh, okay. Question.
Is she?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Oh.
hear you, Marta.
Can hear you.
Hello.
Hello, Marta.
Good evening.
I just wanted to make a comment that once the hillside is relatively stable, I would think you could start putting in your full-grown trees before the house is finished. That's all I wanted to say, so they could get, you know, in the hillside and start growing. So that was just one thing I was going to say.
Thank you for that recommendation. We would work with our general contractor and the phasing of that to make that happen.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Larry?
So I understand you did some measurements because the front setback shown on the diagram I mentioned was not correct. So you got more than 30% slope,
Correct.
40 feet from can you confirm, is that right?
That is correct.
So that means the front yard setback is measured from the finished street side instead of the property line.
Well, I'm looking at, so you're talking about the document that you sent me, correct?
No, it's in your drawings.
No,
It's,
so can you refer to a sheet?
oh, you mean like, oh, sure. Some, just A 1.0,
So you talking about the setback that we're showing,
it's 15 feet from
Yeah,
the
but
property
we're-
line?
and that is correct?
Yeah,
Yes?
but our code, just, I think you might have missed this, our code says that when you're situation on a steep slope, 30%, it's, find it here for you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking for that.
Front setback is 19.48.030B. Says it should be measured 15 feet from the street line. I'm assuming street line means the edge of the street.
But
Not-
that's not the garage or the ADU.
No, that's the setback line. The setback that you're showing here is 15
But
feet.
not the setback for the garage.
Forget the garage. It's the setback for the front yard. It says,
So you're just making a note here that the notation that we have on our sheet here is incorrect, even though it's not impacting the design. Is that correct?
actually, I think that what you're showing is making it look worse than it actually is.
Mhm.
That I think this setback line goes closer to your property line. I just don't have the
think so, too.
measurements.
I agree with that. That is correct.
So I don't know,
we-
what I don't know and what we don't know is how much of the garage and the proposed ADU go into that setback.
Well,
the
I can
real
tell.
setback.
So when you emailed me this document earlier today, we went into our survey and we compared where the setback really is, because you are correct, from the edge of the street. And we came up with 15.2 inches to the eve of the garage.
15 feet, 2 inches.
15 feet, 2 inches away from the edge of the street per that number one.
So it puts the entire garage and the ADU on the property and not in the setback.
Correct.
Then my whole earlier thing is the ADU doesn't violate the setback. So I don't see that it is an issue then.
Sorry.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
I'll tell you
get
why
punchy after
I'll tell you why we
But
didn't.
you guys need to understand, this is, if we do that other thing and set a precedence, there's some issues on the lagoon and elsewhere where it'll come back and bite us. And so I think we need to be very clear that those ADUs if they can fit on the property, then they aren't ministerial approvals.
Larry,
The setback, because he only needs 4 feet setback on the front
On the sides.
and the front and the rear.
Larry, can I ask a question? I mean, the way we took this, and the reason I didn't address that immediately is because I feel like in your third point, unless such living spaces are located entirely below the elevation of the street at the front lot, at the lot frontage, which some of these things are somewhat ambiguous, right? Edge of road is a difficult definition to achieve. But number 3 is non-ambiguous, and it's very clear that the garage and ADU are quite a bit lower than Belvedere Avenue at that point, as you saw today. So I feel like that trumps some of these other definitions. Now, that might be a mistake, but that's where we were coming from.
Well, I mean, I didn't know when I put all this together where the actual setback is. Looking at your diagram, it looks like a
And
problem.
we didn't either. And so that's why, thank you for sending this. That helped a lot. We went back into our survey and checked exactly where we think that edge is located compared to the eve of that structure. And that, again, is 15 feet, 2 inches.
I think that should probably be corrected for the record.
Will
for
do.
the- for
Will do.
for us. Less controversial. The trees that are proposed along Belvedere Avenue, I looked those up and it says they can grow 20 to 35 feet in height and 15 to 30 feet in width. And if you calculate the width of that, it looks like your total front property line there, without counting the garage, their driveway, is 195 feet long. I added up all those numbers. But it seems to me that those trees potentially could cover 210 feet if they grow to full width, and they look to me like they're pretty full all the way from the base of the tree all the way up. So I'm looking at that thinking, we're not going to have any views from Belvedere Avenue with all those trees, the 7 trees that you got there. I know on the drawing, they look like there's openings between them, but when you look up the size of the trees, it potentially blocks 107% of their total footage there. And I would like to see us keep that open. So I'm just wondering if you'd be willing to remove 3 or 4 of those trees to open that up.
So I'm gonna let Marta address that concern.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner, I realize this has been a sticking point for you in our previous hearings. I feel that these are the appropriate trees. I think it can be difficult when you're looking up trees and you look at mature heights. You have to look at the conditions they grow in. We have specified a natural form. This is not a vertical single trunk water gum. And I've used these trees a lot in our projects as small to medium scaled trees. And they're easily maintained that way, and that's the vision. And there is a caveat of maintenance, as there is with any good garden. And you had a previous applicant trying to get eucalyptus removed. And as it is with all landscapes, it comes down to the maintenance of it and having the appropriate tree in the appropriate place. These trees are shown in 2 tiers of planters that step down. And I think our concern is, one, that we don't open up the whole swath of this 3 combined parcel site for views down into the auto court, unobstructed views. So we talked about using these trees as framing views, and it's been my experience in growing a multi-trunked form that we can easily keep these at 18 feet by 16, and that's what we envision. But I appreciate your concern. It's not our intention to obstruct the views along Belvedere Avenue, but rather to frame the views, as I said.
So
in the
Marta,
past.
that if you could hold them at 16 feet, then that's going to be half the view is blocked. And what I saw is those are very dense shade, very thick, so we're not going to be able to see through any tree. It's going to be
Well-
completely blocking any view that it's in front of. So
As a pedestrian, though, I just want to interject, as a pedestrian, you're walking along and the canopy is above you.
that's not the way they look when you look them up. They look like they're full all the way to the ground. You mentioned they're multi-trunked.
It's a natural form, not multi-trunk. It's a natural form, which means, but we still bring the canopy up because we've got underplanting. And I think
Can I ask for a
our
clarification
street
on-
elevations indicate.
On the plan, sorry to interrupt, Marta. On the plan I'm looking at, I think, Larry, you said 7 trees, and I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is 7. Okay, there's one behind the garbage area, utility area. But really, the trees I'm seeing are 6 along Belvedere Avenue. I just wanted to clarify that. And I'm using landscape sheet L 0.01.
And I would argue, if you're familiar with, for instance, the Arbutus marina, which is used a lot in Mediterranean and local planting in Belvedere, as probably the water gum is as well. They are often natural form, and the canopy starts at 6 to 7 feet. So as a walker, and that's primarily when we talk about views, you're either in a vehicle, and you shouldn't be looking out to the water anyway, or you're walking along Belvedere Avenue, you would see between and through them. So I would argue that.
Well, Marta,
These are appropriate.
you mentioned that they're stepping down into the planter boxes, so they're not going to be, that 6 feet, they're going to be below street level.
One is one at the pedestrian, the auto gate and pedestrian entry. The other 5 are along the first level of planting, which
is
has
how far below the street?
approximately, well, it's at the street. There's just a curb there. We just have curbing.
But there's a steeply sloping hill there. I mean, it's going to be set.
Well,
down on
let's go to the elevation. Maybe that would help, the rendering. Could we bring that sheet up?
We have sheet L
Yep, that one.
0.01. Is there, what was the other? Are you looking for L
This is-
0.03?
No, this is it. We have it up. This is correct.
Great, thank you.
And I think this is actually a very realistic rendering.
about a section. I mean, if you look at the hillside,
It's, no, it's, when we look at the grade, we maybe have a 3%, but you know, this is really, I think, rendered accurately.
if you look at A 5.1 and A 6.0 and A 6.1, looks to me like the hillside drops away fast.
Well, the other sheet that you might put up, Sammy, is L 0.04. So obviously you're seeing Belvedere Avenue come down. Is this a good drawing for you, Marta?
Yeah, I think that's also another good drawing. So,
So it's nice to see that figure in there, and I trust these are all to scale.
yep, these aren't miniatures.
Actually, if you look at 6.0, it shows a person up on the street looking down. And when they look down, they're looking over the garage and over the house and then downwards. So,
But that's where the trash is. If you come down to 6.1, you're away from the trash.
okay, you're away from the trash, but you're still clearing the tippy tops of the house and the garage.
But no, my point is the trees will be planted down slope. And so even though the canopy starts at 6 feet above the ground, it's still below street level. So it
Well,
just
it's-
blocks the view.
On 6.1, it shows the plantings right there.
Yeah, the plantings are very close to the road. And also I want to remind everyone, we've got parking all along there. And we know the parking condition in Belvedere, and those spaces will, I feel most of the time, be occupied with vehicles. So, you know, I think that's another very important consideration for our clients, that they're not looking up at a row of cars up there. So it's, you know, the beauty of Belvedere is its wooded character. And I think a project of this scale and with 3 parcels, if you don't nestle the whole project in and, you know, recreate that character of Belvedere, then I think you've really missed something. We've gone the wrong direction.
Okay, move on from the tree.
Yep. So my last question relates to cut and fill.
Yes.
So you've balanced it out to, there's still very large volumes, both cut and fill, but you've tried to minimize the net difference. But the question is, how will that be managed through the process? Are you going to have to remove cut and store it elsewhere? Are you going to store it all on site? How's that actually progress?
Larry Hadley is not here. He is traveling, so unfortunately he couldn't be here, but we've talked a lot about it. So yes, the plan is to store it all on site. And if you go to the construction plan, you know, one of the first things to do is create an area where they can stage everything. So yes, absolutely. That 45 cubic yards of off-haul, that is the only thing that is leaving that site. There's going to be a lot of dirt being pushed around for sure, but
okay,
we understand the intention of that directive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
welcome. Thank you.
I'll now open it to the public. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this project? Is there anyone on Zoom, Nancy? All right, thank you. So I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Lasky, you want to lead off?
I don't really have a lot to add because this is the third time this applicant has been here. And I think we've really covered, what? Oh, can you hear me? I think we've really covered most of the details in this project, and it is very detailed, including the landscape plan. And I actually think the trees look great on the street. Those tend to, as Marta said, kind of a form. I've seen many of those more of a vertical. And I think it's important to have trees on the street. It also gives screening for the home and from the street. And as she said, there's a lot of under plantings there. But I have been over this so many times, and I think the applicant has really addressed all of our questions. And I think it's terrific that you added the ADU back in. I did have one more question for Marta. And I remember you were discussing this last time, but on the decking where the pool is and those planters, we had kind of talked about putting some trees in there. Are you able to do that?
I think that was a good suggestion. And I think it was recommended for both shade when you're on that terrace and also from the water looking up. It adds one more layer, a filigree, if you will, a veil. And we are able to do that. We did not change the drawings because we know we go back in front of, we submit a revised landscape plan, but we are over grade at that pool. So ideally we would look at trees that could be planted at grade and not in a planter or pot. The only caveat again would be not to block views from the main floor with what we do, but that they're a small scale tree, but that do the job. So yes, we will take that definitely under consideration and make those changes.
And of course, you can look through trees and around trees, and I don't mean to have it solid, but that, yeah, I think that would be a big benefit and a positive step.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's really the only thing I have. I can make the findings for this project. I've read through this 3 times, so I think I can.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Story?
I read the materials, visited the site, and spoke to Kurt about my concerns. I think this design for this site is a huge improvement over what was approved back in 2017. I like the materials and the colors and the design features, and I think I very much appreciate that this design would open up views to the bay from the street. I think it fits well with the character of Belvedere. And I think this new proposal reduces the cut and fill that from the last, which I think is very important. I think I'd like to make the point that when we talk about cut and fill, we talk about trying to minimize cut and fill, not just the net difference. This is still a very, very, very large amount of cut and fill, but it's a big project. So I struggled with the verticality of the building, and I felt like, and I pressed several times that I felt like the cut and fill could be greatly reduced if the design was stepping down the hill. Spent quite a bit of time with Kurt today, and I see the reason why they've done it that way. They wanted more light in the bedrooms upstairs, so they can, if you set it so it steps down the hill, you lose your light on the hillside side. It becomes wall. So that's the conflict with our code in a way. Our code encourages stepping structures down the hillside. But given that I understand that desire, I can accept the large volume of cut and fill in this case. and also the fact that it still saves the views from the street. I would like to see some of those trees removed from the street. I think there's a few too many. But I would like to see that remain open as much as possible. So much of that street is closed in. It's like a tunnel. When you walk a drive around there, green tunnel, you can't see out. So I think that would be something I would like to see conditioned. And other than that, I can make all the findings for the design review and all the other requirements,
Great, perfect. Thank you.
entitlements.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, thank you. So I echo what my other commissioners have said. I think it's a really beautiful project, and I think that the changes you've made are great and really improve it. I won't belabor it too much because I can also make the findings here, but I think it's just a really smart design. The one thing that we talked about last time, I just want to make sure is going to happen is that we talked about a 1-for-1 tree replacement. For every tree that's coming out, we'll replace it with one. Yeah, go ahead.
That's correct. I think you had requested that we add 4 more trees, and that was noted and will be done.
Okay, great. No, but otherwise, I think, the landscaping is really thoughtful and appreciate all the detail that's going into it. I think the addition of the plantings at the terrace and pool level will really help, especially on that side of the island. It can get very windy, and I think it would be really helpful to have some trees there. No, but otherwise, I think it's great, and I can make all the findings for design review.
Great, thank you. And not to prolong much longer, I also have reviewed the project 3 times and spoken with the architect on many subjects throughout the 3-time review. And I have to say, it's a lovely design. I feel the architect and the applicant has responded to this commission and what they're trying to achieve. And I also am able to make the findings, the 4 motions for the findings on this project. From what I heard is the final landscaping and lighting, which is a normal condition, the removal and replacement of tree for tree, does that need to be extra, or is that just thrown in as the landscape normal? Okay. And then I'd also like to put a condition in that the 45 cubic yard off haul is the amount of the off haul, or however we want to word that one.
Like it won't exceed.
That it won't exceed, yeah. Or max, whatever. So, and I just do want to add that your lighting still needs some work. Yeah, some lights on there that aren't quite right, but we'll get there. So that can all be taken care of on the final lighting and landscaping. We'll work on that one. So with that, can we have the motions?
Yeah.
Is there a condition to remove a couple of the trees on the street? I need that to approve this.
Well, I don't agree with that.
Then I can't approve it,
Okay,
just for that.
okay.
Okay,
Okay, so I move to adopt the resolution adopting an addendum to an adopted mitigated negative declaration for minor project changes that do not result in any significant environmental changes pursuant to CEQA to the property located at 135 Belvedere Avenue.
Second.
roll call?
Yes.
Lasky,
Yes,
Johnson,
Yes.
Carapiet.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 4-0.
I move to adopt the resolution granting demolition permit to demolish the existing a 3,764 square foot house at 135 Belvedere Avenue.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Store,
I can't if I can't make findings for design review, so I guess I have to say no.
I'm sorry. I want to understand Larry's position because of the trees. You're saying you.
we're kind of in the middle of a vote. I don't think you can.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, well, chair's
All right,
discretion.
let's open up the public meeting and yeah, just get a clarification.
A clarification, Larry, are you saying you can't vote for it because you believe there's too many trees on Belvedere Avenue? Is that correct?
That's it.
So if we lose one tree, if we take away one tree, can you vote yes for it?
I'd like to see at least two.
Marta, you're amenable to that or no? Well, then we're in a
Then you're in a-
we're in a knot here because then
Unanimous.
Chairman Lasky can't, or rather Commissioner Lasky can't vote for it. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, she can vote.
No,
for
I
it.
could go for it, but I think we're okay. We have three, I don't know exactly, but I think we have 3 votes.
Okay. Thank you. That helps me understand better. Thank you.
All right, yes. So we are on
Motion 2.
motion 2 to,
So we were doing roll call.
We're doing roll call. Commissioner Store
On demolition, no.
and Lasky
yes?
and Johnson
Yes.
and Carapiet.
Yes.
Okay, 3-1.
Okay, I move to adopt the resolution granting design review for the property located at 135 Belvedere Avenue, which includes the granting of an extension of the construction time limit.
Second.
Store,
No.
Lasky,
Yes?
Johnson,
Yes.
Carapiet.
Yes.
Okay,
I move to adopt the resolution granting exception to total floor area approval to allow 9,936 square feet where 4,850 square feet is permitted at 135 Belvedere Avenue.
Second.
Store,
No.
Lasky,
Yes?
Johnson,
Yes.
Carapiet.
Yes.
I move to adopt the resolution granting a conditional use permit pursuant to Title 19 of the Belvedere Municipal Code for private recreational use of property zoned R recreation located adjacent to 135 Belvedere Avenue.
Second.
Store,
Yes.
Lasky,
Yes?
Johnson,
Yes.
Carapiet.
Yep. Yes.
I move to recommend to the City Council approval of a revocable license for improvements located in the public street right-of-way at 135 Belvedere Avenue.
Second.
Store,
No.
Lasky,
Yes?
Johnson,
Yes.
Carapiet.
Yes.
Okay. That concludes that.
So congratulations, Kurt, to you and your clients.
Thank you, Kurt.
Okay, I think that concludes our business for tonight.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
There's a motion to adjourn. Yeah.
All in favor? Yay.
Yay.